Greetings, Earthlings.
Hello, hello.
All right, I just have to say this real quick. You know,
Yep.
I'm a big fan of swag. We talk about this all the time.
Yep.
Former guest, Cassidy Lewis of Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers. I emailed her and I was like, "Hey, this pen that I love that I got from you like 5 years ago." Okay. I said it's getting close to the end. She says, "I got you." Sends me literally this ridiculous box. Okay. I kid you not.
Yeah.
I get this. I'm like, wow, what is going to be in here? Let me. I barely looked at it, but like
the unboxing.
There are. I mean, I can't even. Like,
What you use? That's not all
obnoxious.
pens.
No, it's not all pen. Well, a handful of these pens.
I know you like to handwrite your thank you cards, and
oh yeah,
that's a lot of thank you cards. You got your work cut out for you.
I don't know what this is. A little calendar. It could be like my grandma. I mean, they hooked me up. You know what? I will probably give some of this away, which is probably what their point was. But this is how you swag. I mean,
that's right.
This is honestly like I don't even know what to call this thing, but this is the best pen I've ever had in my life. I love it. Maybe not the best pen. Second best pen. Maybe the best pen. But to get this, I mean, I don't know how much money that cost them to send. It's heavy too. First, I thought they would send me like coal. I was like, damn. But look, this is how I do it. Obviously, the Instant team sent us some good swag. Others have sent us swag. Someone actually yesterday said they're sending me a shirt. Excited about that. Just don't go big on swag because it's such a good opportunity.
And the things that people will do for a shirt, it's crazy, right? Man, people go nuts over shirts.
I know. I literally have an entire. I probably should have done this already, and producer James would have been super excited about this. But I literally have one of those big ass containers of just old startup shirts. Like probably 70 or 80 of them. Start Norfolk shirts, Vinyl Mint shirts, Les Comp shirts. I probably have a Start Peninsula
today's
shirt
guest may have pitched at most of those.
I know. I don't have a Steve Waddell shirt. I don't have a Valuepreneur shirt. I don't have a Nasoni shirt. Look, I'm not calling him out saying
I will
send
say,
it away. But
the last time we had Steve on the show, it was from the Nasoni point of view. Different show today. But I stayed at a we'll just call it at a friend's house, and sure enough, because this was for something in the water, we were supposed to camp. It was a terrible forecast. There was a spare bedroom. We stayed at his house. Go into the bathroom, and sure enough, there's a Nasoni faucet there. And I was like, "Well, hot dog, man, how about that?" And man, my hats off to you, Steve. It was a sweet faucet. First time I saw one of those in action. It was good stuff.
You know, I haven't had a chance to post it yet, but I got an email from a company in Seattle, Washington that builds Nord Stream yachts. And there was the owner of a new yacht being built, saw our faucets, requested 2 of them. And it's over a $10 million 97-foot yacht that they're installed in. And they sent me photos. It's amazing.
I mean, nothing. I mean, why wouldn't a Nasoni be in there? I mean, let's just be honest, might as well. Might as well have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I get you have your faucets. It's kind of like paper, right? The weight of the paper, it just feels steady and nice. Like same deal with the Nasoni faucet. I mean, it's high quality stuff there. It's good. I like it, Steve.
Game changing, as they say. There you go.
It's an anomaly.
Well, I didn't say it, but you did. Thank you.
Well, welcome,
Steve.
back,
We know
Steve.
you from many. Yeah, welcome back. We know you from many different hats.
Thanks, man.
We were talking backstage just about presenting in general. You being on stage, one of the best presenters I've ever seen. Just really, just has a good stage presence, and I think a lot of people should watch some of your presentations when you're on stage. I don't know if you practice a ton. I don't know if it's just a God-given talent, whatever it is, but you're good at it, and I think there's something to be said that some of that success that you've seen in business is because you can get up there, you can talk your way into whatever that reality is that you want. Which today we're talking about a book.
Well, I'm honored for you to say that, Zach. I really appreciate it. That's And coming from you, I mean, somebody that almost got the job on Thunderdome, what Steve Harvey got, that's pretty flattering.
Sure.
Have you always been extroverted, Steve?
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. You know, like many people, when I was younger, it was a little nerve-wracking to get on stage, you know, because you're not sure of yourself. But with time and practice, and in general, I just like to have fun. And that's what, if you watch Fox Sports, that's what's great about their announcers at their noon show is they like to have fun. And that's what the audience wants. So if you can figure that out, I think you can solve speaking and having people enjoy it.
Do you watch your broadcast back? You like watch a replay of what you've done?
Oh, of course. Yeah, everybody does, right?
I don't know. I think very, very few. Yeah.
I'm not now. Well, maybe a little bit now. But like I used to, like when I really first started in the business, whether I was in TV or not, like I would watch it religiously. Just be like, try to pick up little tells. And then you're just like, okay, like you're trying to progressively get better. And I think that like people should do that in general. If they could record their conversations, like their sales calls or conversations with teammates and things like that, I think that could be a good way for you to just go back and be like, oh, I thought I was saying this, but actually it sounded like this. That kind of strategy in life, I think can be good. Time consuming, sure, but you can learn a lot of your own tells, and you can learn, oh, I was probably talking too much, clearly. But
one of the best recommendations I ever got is I helped found the International Council on System Engineering here locally in Hampton Roads, as well as the Hampton Roads PMI chapter. And I used to put on big seminars and symposia, and I'd invite speakers from all over the country. And there was two guys that stood out really good. Dr. Robert N. Charette was one of them, and the other one was Dr. Joel Orr. And one day I asked Dr. Orr, I said, how did you become such a good speaker? You're regularly rated the highest. And I said, was it the National Speakers Association or was it Toastmasters? And what he said was, the NSA will teach you the business of speaking, but Toastmasters will teach you how to be a better speaker. So I joined Peninsula Toastmasters. And one of the big things I learned from that was don't use the word How many people use that as a filler as they speak to fill the gaps? And you don't really realize you're doing that. And so, in putting on this summit, for example, I have a number of great speakers that are just killing it. And there's one of them in particular I had to go through and cut out all the ums. When you play it back in Final Cut Pro, every pause is visible in the audio, and you can just go in and cut it out. But that's a big thing, and that people need to learn. And so I highly recommend Toastmasters. I got a certified competent Toastmaster level in Toast, and it was fun. You know, you have fun.
There are so many filler words. You know?
And
look at Zach.
Well, I noticed what I say, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I have a new one. I can't even remember what it is, but like when I watch this back, I'm like, there it is.
Well, you know what I mean? There's so many, and it changes with time. There's a new wave of whatever that new filler phrase might be.
Yeah. So I've never known you to be a writer. I've never known you to be a book guy. Not to say that you don't read and you're not, educational and things like that, but I never knew that a book was a thing that was, on the horizon. What made you want to do it?
So that's a great question. They say 80 to 90% of people all want to write a book, but 3% do, right? And 20 years ago, when I was the risk manager for the CVN 77 or for the shipyard, for the aircraft carrier construction program, I was responsible for developing the risk process and so on. And I wanted to write a book on risk management. And I got a deal with J. Ross Publishing to do that. However, they told me that they would not do it in color. And I said, I have to. If we're going to do risk, I use color coding, red, yellow, green, color charts, things like that to convey certain messages. And if we're going to do this, it has to be in color. And they said, well, business books aren't in color. So I canceled the contract. And then when I joined my wife's company, Reed Integration, and we did project management training all over, I needed a good fundamentals of project management book. I didn't like any of the ones I was using, and I was going to write that, but I just never did. And then I started Nasoni, and in this journey of product development, there were so many lessons learned, so many neat things that I was doing and learning from, and everybody kept telling me, you need to write a book. So it's been a goal of mine to write a book. I just never have. and I just turned 60 in October. So it's a bucket list item that I'm going to accomplish in my 60th year.
I don't know how many shows that we've had where I've been the only person that has not written a book. We've had many, many authors on this show. I'm trying to think, Zach. I mean, there's been several.
We had one last week.
Well, with self-publishing now, it's easier now for people to do that, but it's still you got to make it good quality.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to write it, right? I think writing is the easy part. If you have like an outline, if you have a general understanding of what you want to write about, the actual writing is fairly easy, in my opinion. Everything after that, the countless edits, trying to read the damn thing over and over again and actually reading it instead of thinking what you're saying, because like, as ridiculous as it sounds, you read it, and I'm sure you've done that. Like, you're reading it and you're like, okay, yep, it's all good, and then you just because you think it says one thing, it really doesn't. It's just so it gets hard. It's very difficult to read the thing over and over again. So,
well, what I learned,
I don't know how you do it.
What I learned in the process is there's many different editors that you can get involved. And I didn't have any realization of that until I started the process. And, my developmental editor, Jason Pettis, was fantastic at helping me remove stuff that really belonged in a memoir. Because what I started doing is writing a book on how to go from idea to product selling with a roadmap, right? And in doing so, I created this roadmap, but I also added in kind of like case study stuff out of what I've learned from Nasoni. But as he edited the book and gave me recommendations, a lot of it, he said, really should be in a memoir. Pull that out. And so having a great developmental editor is necessary just to get the structure right. And then there's, of course, different editors that will help with different things, like a line edit when you're at the end,
How did it work with your book, Steve? Did you come up with an outline first? Did you because you cover a lot of different topics?
So that's a great question. So about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, I was invited to speak to students down in Raleigh at a school, middle school, by the principal. And a friend of mine that lives down there, his kids go there. He's on the PTA, and he talked to the principal about me. And they all, kids today watch Shark Tank. They love Shark Tank. And what she wanted to do was have somebody come in and speak what it's really like, though, behind the scenes of Shark Tank to develop a product. So let me pull this over. I actually created this map here, this roadmap of how to go from idea to selling all the way around the wheel. So I've had this step-by-step process for about 4 or 5 years now. And that's, the framework for the book. That's the outline of the bulk of it.
Gosh, at the time, you probably didn't even realize that you had an outline until you committed, right?
I continue to improve it over time.
Sure.
Was it hard getting information from the developmental editor to be like, because some people would say case studies are important. In this case, he said no. Was there pushback? Like, how did you come to the agreement with him or her to be okay with that information going out? Because obviously there is going to be stuff that you remove, but case studies in a book about business.
Don't get me wrong, there are case studies in the book. There are case studies in the book, and there are people that I interview, for example, like Dennis Clayton. Dennis invented Stow and Spin, and Stow and Spin is like a Lazy Susan spice rack. It's double level, it's D-shaped, so the flat D part sits toward the front. So when you close the cabinet door, it closes smoothly, and you put all your spices on it, and it sits on ball bearings and spins, and I mean it works great. I bought 2 of them, but Dennis lives in Georgia now, in Tennessee, but he actually. The case study I show on that is how he brought his idea to market, how he started selling it himself. And then over time, he decided to license a version of it, which was made in China, had a little different functionality. And we explained the licensing contract that he had in place, the royalties he got, and things like that. So people kind of understand you don't have to just go to market selling the product yourself, but you can actually do both. You can license it and sell it at the same time. So there's some great case studies in there.
Got it.
But to answer your question, though, the developmental editor just gave me great feedback about certain things that read more like a memoir. So that was what was pulled out, not necessarily the case studies.
I think about all the stuff that I have. I don't think about it if I already forgot about it, but I look back at some old stuff and I dust it off. I'm like, wow, that was pretty. Some stuff is really, really good. And I'm like, I need to bring that back out. Other stuff, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking?
Like content-wise that you've created?
Yeah. And so I think that from a book standpoint, yeah, it would be interesting to dive back into some of the stuff that you've done before, but I have forgotten more than I probably remember. Does that make sense? No.
I don't think we really kind of introduced the book, if you will. So I'll show you a copy here. This is one of my proof copies from Amazon. You can see it says not for resale here. And, the book is in black and white for the paperback, but it's in full color for the hardcover. The foreword for the book was written by Chris Hively. You might remember MapQuest. Chris is the co-founder of MapQuest, which he sold for $1.2 billion. And I'm honored that he wrote the foreword for the book. And, the interesting thing about the book is, again, it contains the process of how to go from idea to selling. But there are a couple other things that are really important that are in the book as well. I don't know if you realize it, but according to Clayton Christensen, Harvard professor, 95%, a staggering 95% of new products fail. And what that's based on, from my understanding, is a U.S. patent study where the patent office reached out to X number of patent holders, and they sent out a questionnaire. How much of your patent was actually commercialized? And from that study, that's where the number 95% comes from. And actually, I've told it's even a little bit higher. It's 97%. So there's a problem here where products are failing to get to market on a huge number. Now, we've had things like the business model canvas for years now, and we've had the Steve Blank customer development model for years now as well. And we still have that failure rate. So what I've done is I've created the process that I just showed you on that board, and I've integrated into it the Steve Blank customer development model, as well as the business model canvas. So for example, when you come up with your idea and you're figuring out who your customer profile is, your avatar, if you will, you'll start putting that in your canvas. And then what's that value proposition you're offering? Put that in the canvas. And along the way, as you do this, we're filling it out so that by the time you're ready to go to sell, you have your business model canvas done. And that's one of the things that's different about it.
Yeah, one of the things that's so challenging for me when the founders that I'm working with is the fear of going out to sell, and they kick the can down the road. They just wait, and it's tough. I get it, but the quicker you get to a no, the quicker you can move to a new prospect.
Well, even before selling, though, you got to not have that fear to go out and talk to customers about what they want, and that's critical to make sure. Not only are you developing the right product, but you're doing it at the right price point. So I'll give you an example. John Nottingham runs the best innovation center I've ever seen in the country. It's in Cleveland. I was just there a week ago and toured the facility. They have a rotunda. It's an old church converted into an innovation hub. The rotunda inside it is bigger than the one in the Washington Capitol, the DC Capitol. And John has a 95% commercialization success rate. 95% of his patents are the exact opposite. They've commercialized those. But do you guys remember the spinning lollipop? It's on like a stick and you can push a button and it spins. They invented that. And what they did, John told me what they did is, they interviewed 100 kids. Would you like this? And 100% of them said yes. So then they went to the moms and they said, who's going to pay for it, right? The mom, the customer. And they said, would you pay $10 for it? And they said, no. Would you pay $5 for it? Would you say no? Would you pay $4 for it? No. Would you pay $1 for it? The answer was yes. Something like that, right? I think it was $4. So $4. So that meant they had to make it for $1 because of distribution channel, right? You double it to wholesale and double wholesale to retail. And that's how you got to a $4 price point. But they had to get to the customers to learn that. And that's extremely important. He'll be walking people through that at the summit, by the way, which is coming up February 21st to 23rd, Idea to Product Summit. John is one of the 23 speakers we have speaking at the event.
Is it weird that hey, I want to start a business, but I don't want to sell. And to think that that is like, okay. It's just like,
no, it's not weird.
It's not weird. I mean,
you got to play to your strengths, right? Not everybody has.
You do, but you got to sell it at some point. Like this thing can't make money, can't get in front of people if you're not going to sell it in some sort of way. As the founder and
CEO, you're always going to be the number one salesperson.
No, I think everyone is a salesperson, though, and no matter what category of their life, we're always
true. But as far as selling in terms of selling the product, what we do in the Valuepreneurs process, once you have done your customer validation, you develop your proof of concept to a certain degree, then you're at a decision point. We say, look, if you have the skills to go forward and make an MVP and go through all the way through to selling and patenting and everything else you're going to do, then you can go forward. But if you don't, then maybe you need to license it. And so we walk you through what's it like to license a product. What are the steps and what do you got to look out for in a licensing agreement? You know, what are the gotchas in a licensing agreement? How do you monitor your licensee to ensure they're performing correctly?
Well, you still got to be in sales in that position when you're not selling.
You're always
because you're negotiating. Right. And so like, I just like when these conversations come up, it's just silly to me. It's like, hey, I want to start a business. I want this to be very successful, but I don't want to sell. It's just like, where do you think that's okay? Like,
it's such a red flag when someone's like, oh, I'm just going to hire a salesperson. It's not going to cut it. And one of the things about you, Steve, I appreciate, kudos to you. You're always selling. I mean, like you're always, you never stop. But
he
that's
sold us 4 times this morning already.
Thank you. But, and you're right. You know, part of it too is storytelling, is an art, and being good at it can help you sell. And so at the summit, we have 2 different people coming to talk about storytelling. Susan Lindner runs Innovation Storytellers. She's got a LinkedIn page you can find, and she's going to talk about how do you use storytelling to your team and to your business partners and so on. Sean Saunders is going to come in and talk about how you can use storytelling to raise investment funds, because that's also a story, and you got to be good at it to win those investment funds. Or even, let's say, startup competitions, right? It's all about getting on stage and telling that story, why you should be picked in your product.
Well, and one of the things that I tell everyone is, as humans, we are visual learners. And by telling that story, you have to put that person in the position of using your product or your service. And once they envision that, then now you're getting somewhere. But if you just bore someone with numbers, they're going to glaze over. They're not going to pay attention. They're not going to remember. So that the storytelling is super important, and that you take that perfect use case scenario, and that's what you build your story around.
True.
Articulation, if that's a word, to articulate.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, if someone doesn't understand it, like you got to go back to the drawing board and make it till they understand it. And that could take many, many times. And that's okay, but you got to figure, you just got to keep doing it.
Our keynote is Jason Pfeiffer, and he's going to talk about Opportunity Set B.
Is that the Entrepreneur Magazine?
Yeah, the editor of Entrepreneur. He's our keynote speaker for the summit. He'll be going live right after we go live with the introduction of the summit. But, I was talking to Jason Pfeiffer back earlier this year, probably in April. I was interviewing him for a different reason. And I told him about my book. And my book at that time was called Legends Execute. And the whole idea about it was execution is what counts, right? Ideas are a dime a dozen. And as I explained that to Jason, Jason says, everybody knows execution's where it's at. I think you need a different title. And he reaches over to a bookshelf and he pulls a book off, and it says, The Third Door. It's the title of the book. And he goes, do you know this book? And I said, no. He goes, well, the author has built a whole business around this metaphor of a third door. And he said, let me explain it to you. Put yourself in this position. You're in line to get in a bar, and it's a long line. There's a bouncer there, and he may or may not let you in. Well, the only other way to get in is the VIP entrance. And if you're not a VIP, you're not getting in there either. But if you're in the know, there's a third door. So he goes, I think you need to think about something like that, right? So now I'm racking my brain. What can I use for my book that would kind of be a metaphor that would be really cool and different? And it was very painful because I'm going to Chat GPT. I'm typing in, hey, what's a great idea? And nothing is coming together. And I'm finally on vacation at the Outer Banks with my wife and another couple. and we were watching a movie, and I'm still thinking about my book title because that was all I can think about. And as I thought about it, I was reminding myself what's different about my process. So I'll bring it up again. This is it, right? And what you can see is that at the idea stage, it's all risk. Why is that? Well, remember, ideas are a dime a dozen because you've done nothing to add any value. So as you see the process here, every step you take should reduce risk and add value to your product. So that ultimately, when you're at what's called product market fit, when you're selling in your sleep, because you're on let's say your product's on Amazon and people are buying it while you're sleeping, that's product market fit. You found it. And so then it's all value, right? So then I read another book on marketing recently that had put two words together and make a new word. So I thought, okay, maybe I can take value and add it to entrepreneur some way. And that's how I came up with the title of the book, Valuepreneurs.
Whoop, there it is.
Yeah. So let's back up just a little bit because we've talked a little bit about the book. We've talked about the summit that's coming up. What is the price? Let's break that up. What's the purpose of the summit?
So that's a great question. I hired a company called selfpublishing.com. Chandler Bolt runs the company. He's grown it to over $50 million business now. He dropped out of Clemson because he said, I was learning from professors that had never run a business on how to run a business. He's got a great TED Talk, by the way. If you search for Chandler Bolt TED Talk, it's fantastic. But anyway, I hired their help, and I got to back up to you asked me about the summit. So yeah, the issue there was in their coaching process, they say you need to get on 100 different podcasts to raise awareness of your book as you launch it. And I thought, I really don't know 100 different podcasters, and I don't necessarily want to go beg to be on 100 of them. Is there a different approach I can take? And I came to the realization, I want to host a virtual summit. And so, because I had led conferences 20 years ago, in-person events in Hampton Roads that had anywhere from 200 to 600 people attend. They were massive, but they were localized. Virtual summits can be so much bigger because the concept is you run them for free. And of course, you can offer some paid upgrades and all the speakers come in and speak. And they get affiliate revenue because you give them an affiliate link and you share whatever upgrades are bought. But the summit is fantastic. We've got, like I said, 3-day event, 23 speakers. The event's entirely free. You'll have 24-hour access to all the presentations. And then if you want to keep them longer, you can do the all access pass. Or, and Zach, you reminded me of this when you showed your box this morning. This just came in last night. This is the VIP upgrade box. Now, it doesn't have everything in it yet, but when you buy the box, you'll get a copy of the book Valuepreneurs, along with the ABA Guide to Patents book and other things. So this is our virtual summit box, and man, it is killer.
Look at it. You got Paul Nolde on there. I see I see Chris Hively. I see you.
Do you know Dr. Ahmad Glover? He runs Wiggle, and Wiggle is wireless charging, and he's raised $12 million through Start Engine and platforms like that, virtual crowdfunding. Now, Dr. Glover, we just did his panel discussion. He has an amazing product that is like a water bottle, and you pour salt water in it, and it has a USB on the outside. It creates power from salt water, and it runs for up to 12 hours. And he'll be talking about that at the summit. So those are some of the speakers. Then when you look on the back of the book, let's see, I turn it this way. It has my book, of course, and then a link to the book website. And so all the speakers, are all the way around, and they're incentivized, of course, then to promote this box, man. It's the coolest thing ever.
I'm a big fan of, I like that you pushed back the company, like, maybe 100 podcasts, this is the thing, what else can I do? I'm a big fan, and I've done this over 1,000 times, is bring people to me, right? Host an event. Right? Why? Because you are the attraction and people are going to constantly look at you. And that is a way to raise awareness. And in that, you get to let the world know, in your case, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Thank you for being here. Let's put on a hell of a party. And, the rest is history, if you will. But you're
exactly right, Zach, because you know what else? In the word authority is the word author. So when you come out with this event and you're associated with all these speakers, you become the authority. And as your book is there, you're the author that goes with the whole thing.
Is each presenter, do they focus on one section of the chart that you showed us?
That's a fantastic question. So I've set it up over a 3-day period where the first day covers kind of idea and concept development. Mm-hmm. Day 2 is more prototype and MVP. And then day 3 is launch and market introduction and investment. So, I mean, it's set up in that whole cycle. It's a fantastic event. I can't tell you how amazing the speakers are.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I was lucky enough to get a little preview at a meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, and it is really a fantastic group of speakers. Kudos to you for making that happen.
Thank you. And the other side to this, and Zach, to your point, is when you do something like this, then if I want to go get on some podcasts, I can then say I am the authority figure in this space, or at least for my book. And here's why. And you can show the summit. And then it's a lot easier to get on those podcasts. So I can still do those later.
And the cool thing is what is the cost of the summit to attend?
Free. Absolutely free.
There you go. And if you want to choose to upgrade and get that sweet swag box, if you will, then you can. But it's a super awesome group of speakers that you have. Tons of value, all for free.
Tons of value. You said the magic word, valuepreneurs, right? That's the goal. But that's the goal. I try to create a win-win, right? The speakers are coming in, giving their time for free to share their knowledge, but they're going to get affiliate links. So through the VIP passes, they'll get some of the revenue out of that. We're not trying to make money out of this, right? The rest of the revenue comes in. It's just going to go to marketing. So marketing to make the event as big as we can. Daniel O'Connor is an expert on monetizing your IP, intellectual property. Daniel's out of Australia, and he has an email list of 200,000 people. He's going to share that, the event with his distribution list. And Tim, you've got a pretty significant list for Hampton Roads and Richmond, 30,000 plus. All the speakers have those kind of lists, and they're all going to be sharing the announcement about the event, except for Jason. I'm not going to ask Jason Pfeiffer out of Entrepreneur to do it.
He's going to put that one page spread in upcoming issue, and you're off to the races, right?
That's right. Have you seen this month's episode or issue of Coastal Virginia Magazine?
Yeah, I saw you were. I did see that you were there, and
we did get a one-page spread there.
You did, right next to Jolie Spears from the Small Business Development Center with her Pitch Perfect article. No, that was great. Yeah, I did see that.
That was a beautiful issue of the Co Virginia too, because they redid it after COVID and just made it completely just gorgeous. The whole issue looks great, looks fantastic. Beth Hester is the editor for that, and she did a great job with it.
And then with that, you're taking all so that promotes the book, and it'll be interesting to see how all that works out. It's an interesting play, but I agree. I would think that trying to track down 100 different podcasts. I suppose you just have to go to the search function, but the way I did it is I went to Fiverr and I found somebody that does this, that searches out podcasts for your genre. And I paid them, and they found over 100, and they got the contact information and all of that. And I'm like, man, do I really want to do this? That's a lot of talking.
It's a lot of time dedicated to trying to beg them to be on it as well. And so, the whole approach to me was like, if I'm going to spend that much time, let's do a summit, and then afterwards it'll be easier for a podcast.
Speaking of time, you are involved in not just Valuepreneurs, the book. You're associated, and started in Asani. You got the summit. Your wife has a business. Some grants that have been in there that you're telling us about. Like, how do you put your day together so that you feel successful with it, so that you feel like you're getting the job done? Like, what does the day in the life of Steve Waddell look like?
I like to be at work by 6. I'm a morning person. And one of the things Becky and I did was we re-engineered our lives, because we were living in Smithfield for a while and working in Harbor View area of Suffolk. And our commute was just getting longer every day. We both drove separately because I'm at work before she is. And the traffic on Route 17 was getting worse. And so we decided we would move closer to our office. And so now we live 2 miles from our office. So my commute is nothing. It's virtually nothing. And we got back an hour, when you look at each way. which adds up to at least 5 hours a week. And that has helped a lot to manage the day.
That's an extra month and a half of work when you total it for the year.
It makes a big difference. And I say we engineered that solution. And the other thing is, when you love what you do, it's no longer work. So, like last night, I'm at home, I'm doing things, when you watch TV these days, if you're like me, you don't just sit and watch TV. You're on your iPad and you're doing other things simultaneously. You're checking emails, you're managing things and doing things. I just love what I do. And I feel like, I got thrown in the briar patch, right? The grant stuff is great. I won the grant for $2 million in September with Old Dominion University, and we're working down that path now. I got Spark Product Development out of Richmond, who's building our prototype body for us this time. And at the same time, I'm also hopefully about to win a grant next month with the National Institute of Aging with Eastern Virginia Medical School with Dr. Hamid Okrabi, the head gerontologist there, to develop a smart sensor faucet for Alzheimer's and dementia patients with the National Institute of Aging. And again, that's $2.58 million if we can land that. So that's going to position us really well to come out with a solution that's never been done before, that we're patenting, obviously, and benefit Nasoni, the growth of Nasoni.
It's a lot of cheddar.
But all that stuff, the COVID really impacted Nasoni negatively because at the launch of our company, COVID hit. Who can plan for 100-year pandemic, right? And of course, the China tariffs hit. Everything hit at the worst time. So we ended up consuming a lot of our marketing capital as operating capital, right? And at some point, you got to pivot, and that's what's in the book too. It's all we talk about, pivoting. And the grants. My wife said, "You ought to think about a grant." And I thought, what am I going to do with a grant and a faucet? But one day, Dr. Nancy Gurdon introduced me to Dr. Lisa Caperna. Lisa is the clinical director of Old Dominion University. And Lisa said, "Man, if we had a sensor version of this, we could really help our spinal cord injured patients." And that's the idea. Light bulb went off. And that's when I applied for the grant. But this kind of thing is all about in the book, right? How you do these pivots, and being on the lookout for those. They say luck. There's a definition for luck, but I like to say it's where preparation meets opportunity, what Roman philosopher Seneca said, right? Because when it came time the idea came up with Lisa, I was ready to submit a grant. I was ready to go figure that out because the idea was already there, and I'd worked toward it. The other trick to that was I had written many government proposals, but I'd never written one for a grant. And so do your homework. I went and found a grant expert and helped me write this proposal. But I turned that $10,000 PPP loan. Remember, I got $20K out of the PPP process. I took that $10,000. I hired this expert to help me write that first grant. We turned that into $259,000. Then after we did successful through that, I hired him again for $15K, which we just turned into over $2 million. So that $10K is already converted to over $2 million, $2.5 million in grant funding. And if I win this NIA grant, it's going to be over $5 million. All that happened because I took that first $10K and took a gamble.
When a grant and a faucet emerge, ladies and gentlemen, the Steve Waddell and the Jam Band coming up next.
Well, the thing that stands out with me with this whole thing was I'm prior military. You worked on aircraft carriers. Is like just the little stepping stones, like learning how to chart. The military and the DOD, boy, they love their charts. Everything's a chart and a checklist. So little things like that we're prepping you for today that 20 years ago, or however long it's been, you have no idea that this is going to set you up for this. And it's funny, I went down to your office and you gave me a tour of Nasoni over the summer, a few months back, and you gave me this PMP, Project Management Professional card.
Yeah.
And I'm a PMP certified guy that, and I was like, man, this is pretty helpful. It gave me some flashbacks, to be honest with you, in terms of in preparation for taking that exam. And
for that card, I actually have sold over for Becky's company when I worked for her. They were selling $10,000 a month of them on Amazon. We found product market fit for those.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing about it is, so I brought that card back home and I had it on my desk. Next thing you know, I'm in my wife's office and she's got that card on her desk because so she saw the value of it. So she's looking at it. So it's just all those things that you did to prepare yourself for today. And the other thing that stands out is just it just seems like you're always thinking and you're staying curious and you're like, man, what else and what else? And yeah.
Well, to that point, Tim, I'm glad you brought that up because the selfpublishing.com company said you need a lead magnet for your book. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do for a lead magnet? Well, guess what I did? I created a card for it, right? So there's this handy card, and it's a free download at valuepreneurs.com. And, if you look at it closely, you can actually see some of the graphics from the book. And this is, investment. Like when you're at the idea stage over here, what investment is available? Well, really only bootstrapping. But as you go through the process, other investment models come online. So this is, again, a free download on valuepreneurs.com, but you can also buy a printed copy for $7.95. It'll also be in the VIP upgrade package.
Boom. Yeah,
always selling.
That's what I said. I mean, Steve's always selling, and the crazy thing is how responsive you are to. Anytime I send you an email, you ping something back within seconds. I'm like, man.
Well, by the way, your Innovate Hampton Roads emails are great. I love reading them. You do a good job with that, and they're actually an asset to Hampton Roads. I love seeing you do that.
Well, I appreciate the ideas that and suggestions that you reply back to me with as well. So, yeah, you stay pretty busy, Steve.
Well, I hope we can put the link to the summit in the newsletter, that you put out and so on, and it's in this podcast. Yeah,
we'll definitely have it in the links in the show notes for this, and I appreciate you putting the spotlight back onto Hampton Roads and you wanting to give back. I mean, that is a really, really important piece that I want to make sure that as this region continues to try to gel together, hopefully it's not even hopefully, we are going to be building really successful companies, and they can't forget that, hey, we all work together to get that started. So give back. And I appreciate you and your willingness to give back as well. So thank you for that.
That's what the book is all about, Valuepreneurs. That's my give back to the entrepreneurial community in essence. It's not like I'm trying to make big money off it. The book has got a ton of value in it, and it's going to be $19.99 for the paperback. The hardcover will be more expensive, but it'll be in color. And so it's not expensive, but there's just so much in it that people can learn from and get value out of. And as a resident of Hampton Roads for 54 years, I'm invested in the community. I've lived in Hampton, I've lived in Smithfield, I lived in Suffolk, lived in Portsmouth, I lived all over. The funny thing is about Hampton Roads, if you grew up on the peninsula, you don't go to the south side much. If you grew up on the south side, you don't go to the peninsula much. But I've lived on both. So
I feel like my zip code is either the HRBT or the Monitor Merrimack. I'm constantly going through those tunnels. But you're right. I mean, especially you ask someone from Virginia Beach to go to the peninsula, and it's like you're asking them to go across the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, technically, it is across a bridge.
Well, speaking of that, growing up, when I grew up in Hampton, I didn't know the difference between the downtown and the midtown tunnel. It wasn't until I moved, that I really understood that. Just because you don't go through it often enough.
So some people are afraid of tunnels, and maybe that's the reason why. I'm sure there's a phobia for it. I don't know. I think we should start this thing on this show called the filler tracker. So just tally up every single time either Tim, myself, or our guest use filler words. I'd be at 77 right now, and it's ridiculous. But
I try to be super cognizant of it. It is hard. Especially one of the things that I do with people that are practicing their pitch, it's like, hey, do a transcript, record your pitch, transcribe it, and then highlight every filler word. And then when you see a highlighted paper, this is nothing but filler words, that gives you an idea, especially if you are constrained to a 3-minute pitch. You only can say so many words within 3 minutes. And if you were using 25% on filler words, you're losing a lot of time on selling.
So what I hear you saying is that every word has to add value.
That is correct, Steve.
I'm going to use that phrase all the time, guys.
Nothing like value.
Well, that's just it. And if you are adding value, then selling becomes so much easier. And if you don't tell someone about the value that you can provide someone, you're doing them a disservice by not telling them, especially when they're suffering from a pain point that you can cure.
Well, and it's not just customer value. You got to think of it holistically, right? Your partners, who are your partners in bringing your product to life? For the sensor faucet that we're creating, Spark Product Development is a subcontractor to me. Well, I need to make it a win-win for them as well, and so that they see value in being part of this. And that just happens with everybody on my team as we try to find the value for everyone and make it a win-win-win.
Super important.
Win-win-win. You said the goal isn't to make a lot of money with the book and things like that. What is the goal of the book?
Again,
provide value.
There's a 95% failure rate of new products going to market. And so the goal for me is to make this become the new standard for how to go from idea to selling for products in the world, right? When I started my journey with Nasoni, I'll put it to you like this. I saw a Roman Nasoni fountain, that was a street fountain, and it was an idea. And I took that idea and I bought a faucet at Home Depot. No, it was Lowe's. And I bought a shutoff valve. I took all that stuff home. I drilled a hole in the top, put the shutoff valve in the spout, hooked a garden hose up, and turned it on. And that was my prototype, a proof of concept, if you will. But then I had to take that as an idea. And how do you make that a reality? There was no roadmap to follow. I mean, I'll ask both of you guys, have you ever seen a great entrepreneur book that says, here's how you go from idea and it takes you step by step all the way to selling?
A lot of people claim. I think that having the map and the path and doing so is really it's super important. So,
but that's what I couldn't find.
Right.
That's what
Right.
So that's why I wrote the book, is to help entrepreneurs. I'll give you another example. So in that journey, right, and I had to come up with, okay, what do I do after I make this prototype or proof of concept rather? And I said, I need to help find somebody that can help me come up with a design. And so I thought about going to my shipyard friends that I used to work with. And I thought, they don't have the software at home to do CAD modeling and fluid dynamics. I thought about then going to ODU as a student project, but I couldn't get any response. So then I turned to freelancers. And this was back when before Elance and Odesk merged and became Upwork. So I turned to Elance and I found a guy in Thailand that had what I needed, fluid dynamics and CAD modeling. He was actually an American living in Thailand. And we came up with a concept design and it was really, really cool. And what's your first thought when you have a cool idea and you actually design it? What do you think your next thought is?
How to do it?
Ryan? Tim?
How to do it?
That's one. What's your thought, Tim?
No.
Well, what's my next? For me, I'm different. What's my next step? How do I execute this?
So a lot of people think I got to protect it. I got to get a patent, right? So nobody steals my idea. That was my next thought, right? So because now I've got this cool design and I love how it looks and all this stuff. I got to go protect it. And so I asked a local attorney, who does patent work, and he recommended someone. They wanted $7,500 or something like that to do the patent. I'm like, man, I don't have that kind of money right now because I don't even know if my idea is doable, if it's legit. So then I thought, how can I do this cheaper? So I went back to the freelance market. I found a patent attorney in India that worked with the U.S. Patent Office. And I paid him 1/5 of the cost. And we submitted design and utility patents then. And the problem with that, though, is, and that's what I teach in the book, that's not the right time because you have not flushed out your idea with your customers. You've not refined it through manufacturing and doing design for manufacture and things like that. So what we teach you in the book is when is the right time to consider patenting. We also teach you that maybe you don't want a patent. Maybe you should make it a trade secret. So there's lots of things to think about in this process. But the point is you can save tens of thousands of dollars following the process in the book rather than guessing at what the steps you should be following are.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I guess I've been around the block enough to know that that's flesh this out a little bit further. Let's validate this idea a little bit before you start spending money on protecting that idea. But yeah, you're right.
It's a common mistake, though. Everybody thinks I got to protect, somebody's going to steal it. And of course, the other one is we met with a guy. I went to Nottingham Spurk in Cleveland last week, and he has an idea for what's called a safety. He called it a safety clip. It's a nail clipper. It's a new concept on how to do that. And he's got a prototype made from China, and he's showing it around. And I'm like, have you filed for a provisional patent yet? And he said, no. I said, man, you can't be exposing this to people, without having some protection. You need to go ahead and file a provisional patent. And of course, he's like, I was a Marine and then I was a mailman. He goes, I'm not a whiz bang guy to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, you got to find an attorney. And so while we sat there, I asked him what was different about it, and he fired off about 5 different things. And I took on my phone, I pulled up Chat GPT, and I said, Chat GPT, take these 5 concepts and write them as patent claims. And it did. And he goes, and I read it back to him, and he goes, man, I love that. Can you send that to me? I said, this is just what you can take now to a patent attorney as a head start on drafting your provisional patent.
There you go. Steve, what's something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
The biggest thing is, the summit that's coming up that we've talked about. The actual URL for that is 2024.ideatoproductsummit.com. So I want to make sure everybody knows that. And I know you're going to share that. But again, the goal of the summit is to help people overcome that 95% failure rate bringing products to market. And the speakers we have are the best in the business. If you're interested in crowdfunding, Rain Factory is a big company that helps startups take their idea on crowdfunding platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And I have the CEO from Rain Factory going to be presenting. I also have the CEO, Roy Morjan, from Inventus Partners, who has helped raise over $1 billion through projects like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and so on. And he's going to be presenting as well. I mean, these are like the best in the business in the country that are coming to speak at this summit. And I really want everyone to have the opportunity to attend. And that's why it's free. So, it's a not miss event. And to me, it's going to be the biggest event coming from Hampton Roads for entrepreneurs that's ever happened.
I want to touch base real quick. I never knew this story until we had you speak at Start Peninsula this past November. It was our championship pitch. We like to showcase what people have done. And the big thing is you don't necessarily need to be the winner of Start Peninsula to be a winner at the game of entrepreneurship. And so you gave the keynote address. Great stuff. But one of the things that I took away from, you showed like when you're on Steve Harvey and you won a couple other pitch competitions, but was it the pitch? That was the show where you take the elevator.
That's the entrepreneur elevator pitch.
Yeah. and like, I'm just curious, for those that didn't watch, you took a totally different approach to this, and you used your time to do everything but show the product.
You want me to cover that?
So I would like. Does that go down as one of the biggest L's that you took? Do you wish you had that time back?
Actually, no. And let me explain why. So I won $50,000 on Thunderdome with Steve Harvey that fall prior. Okay. And we used that to make our MVP product. And then I went to the Kitchen and Bath Show in Orlando, the largest show for bath products in the country, that January. And we won the Best of KBiz People's Choice Award. And this is the MVP faucet that we made, right? And you turn the lever and it becomes a water fountain. So you can see this is the Nasoni fountain faucet. And so the next thing was another startup competition, was called, as you mentioned, Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch. That was in February at CBS Television Studios in Hollywood. And I flew out there, and actually we got on an elevator. The idea was you get on an elevator and when you give your pitch in 60 seconds. And there are 4 judges at the top. If they like your pitch, they open the door and you get to finish it. If they don't like it, they give you a thumbs down. And so knowing this is a reality show, I'm thinking to myself, I want to make this intriguing. How can I make it exciting and fun? So I fly out to California. I've got my faucets with me. And I went to a local store and I bought a 3-rack shelf that was on wheels, put my faucets on it. They're on stands. And I covered that up with a black cloth. And then I had one faucet like this in a bag, a black bag, and you couldn't see it. And so the idea was I got on the elevator and my pitch was we reinvented the bathroom faucet, literally. It's awesome. It's so awesome. In fact, we won the best the kitchen and bath industry show at the show last month, Best Peak Choice Award. And it's patented. And so we're at the goal line. And with your help, we'll get across the finish line. And so, I stood there proudly waiting to be to open the door and go in and finish giving the rest of my pitch. Well, next thing you know, the elevator's going back down. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And so the show airs 2 weeks later on YouTube, and you can actually look it up. You can do a search for Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch and Steve Waddell, and you'll find it. But when the show airs, I see what happened was the judges, there are 2 women and 2 men. One of the ladies looks at the other one and goes, "Oh, that's mean. I really want to know what it is." And the other girl goes,
"Who was that? Was that Kerry Walsh, the volleyball player?"
No, I don't recall their names.
Yeah, I think one was Kerry. I don't know. It
might have been. But she looks at the other girl. She goes, "That's mean. I really want to know what it is." And the other goes, "Yeah, this world always leaves you wanting more." And one of the guys speaks out and he goes, "Well, yeah, he didn't tell us how much he wanted. Didn't show us the product. So I say thumbs down." The other goes, "Oh, okay, thumbs down." So I got sent home. And I'm flying home though, and I'm thinking, I asked God, I say, "God, why did you put this in my path?" Because I had to fly out on my own nickel, buy the airplane tickets. Unlike Thunderdome, they paid my way out and paid my hotel. But I had to fly out there on my own, buy the rental car, pay for the hotel, all those things. And that's startup money's precious, as you know it. There's not a lot around. And so I'm thinking, why did you put this in my path? Well, I should have had faith, right? Because when one door closes, another one opens. Because what happened was 2 weeks later when it aired, there's a lady that I know from the Richmond SBA who knew me from my wife's company, saw it, and she reached out to a friend of hers named Ben. And they actually rode the school bus together 50 years ago. And I get this call from Ben the week after that. And Ben says, "Hey, Steve, tell me about your product. I heard it from this so-and-so." And so I tell him about it. And he goes, "Would you like to meet an investor, a friend of mine that I work with in Minnesota?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we had a call with the investor. And the investors liked what they heard. And they said, "If we're going to go any further, we think you need to come to Minnesota." So that August, my wife and I booked a flight to the JW Marriott, which is attached to the Mall of America, which is just the coolest place. Now, I picked the Mall of America so I could pitch the general manager on the faucets. I'm going to try to sell the faucets, right? And so anyway, we had the meeting with the investor, and it went fantastic. And, you feel like you're on Shark Tank, right? Because you're giving your pitch and you're talking about what you're going to do. And this investor had a whole team. He had a marketing team, a lady that had worked for Best Buy doing marketing, worked for him now. And Ben, if you remember Finger Hut, Ben helped grow Finger Hut to $1 billion company, and he worked for them. And so they had this whole team. Anyway, we gave our pitch, and came back the next day, and we met. The investor actually took us out that night. He and his wife, they're both the investors, took us, my wife and I, to tour the town. And we walked the town. We got some ice cream and all that. And that's kind of a get to know you kind of thing to see if there's a fit, right? So the next day they made an offer, and they countered what we had proposed their investment was. And so our investment, I'd asked for $600,000 for 25% of the company. Now, if you haven't gone to market and sold yet, and if you watch Shark Tank, that's a good deal for me, right? To take this company. They offered 500. I countered back with really need to be 600. Our numbers are solid, and they agreed. So I left out of there ecstatic, right? But that never would have happened, because I never would have had that opportunity if I hadn't gone out and gotten the exposure of being on the show where I failed. So, would I do it over again? Yes, absolutely. Because the other thing is, I've heard from people that have been on that show, the 4 people that invest all have to agree, and there was all kind of issues with that. And so it worked out the way it should have.
Interesting stuff. It was a cool story. That was something that stood out. Appreciate
Thank
you. Elaborate even further on that.
Yeah, that's been the most fun part of this whole Sony journey is getting in these competitions, all the people you meet, the joy of winning, the crushing sometimes defeat of failure, right? But you learn from all of that, and you try to get better each time.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Steve, appreciate your time. This has been wonderful.
Guys, the pleasure is all mine. I'm honored to be back on here, and thank you again for having me here. And
I look forward to the summit. Look forward to the book.
We'll be in touch on setting up the opening ceremony with you and getting the governor's letter. Governor Glenn Youngkin's writing a welcome letter, so I'm excited to have that shared as well.
Well, thanks so much, Steve.
All right, guys. Thank you. It was great.